They say you can tell when something is off. Some gut feeling. Some whisper in your chest that something's about to go wrong. I didn't get that. There was no warning. No pit in my stomach. Just the sound of a blender whirring and my wife, Ava, humming some upbeat pop song while pouring her protein shake into a glass. She was smiling. That morning, she smiled like nothing in the world could touch her. Tight-fitting blazer, freshly straightened hair. That vanilla-scented perfume she only wore on presentation days. I was making eggs in the kitchen while trying to untangle a cord from my laptop charger. And I remember looking up at her thinking, damn, I got lucky. I even told her she looked amazing. She leaned over, kissed my cheek, and said, "Wish me luck." I did. She walked out the door that morning with the confidence of a woman at the top of her game. What neither of us knew was that she was walking straight into the kind of moment that would turn our marriage upside down. Let me rewind just a bit. Ava worked in marketing, regional lead at a mid-sized firm. High pressure, fancy lunches, company retreats in Aspen and Miami. She loved the hustle. And honestly, I respected that. We met in college, got married 7 years ago, and up until 2 months ago, I thought we were rock solid. I work from home, IT consulting. We weren't flashy, but we were stable. Or so I thought. She'd been more distant lately, but not in a way that screamed affair. More like distracted. She was staying late at work more often, talking in hushed tones when certain calls came through. I chalked it up to stress, deadlines, upper management being a nightmare. She even started working Saturdays sometimes, claiming she needed quiet hours in the office. Now back to that morning. At exactly 8:43 a.m., Ava walked into her office smiling. She had no idea that her assistant Kayla had arrived early, or that Kayla's keycard hadn't worked, or that security had let her in and told her to wait in Ava's office. Kayla had no idea what she was about to walk into either, because apparently Ava's office wasn't empty, and neither was her life. That morning, Kayla opened the office door with a polite knock and stepped inside just in time to catch Ava laughing, locked in an embrace, with someone who very much wasn't me. Shirt half unbuttoned, Ava's jacket off, their bodies too close to mistake for anything professional. It was a scene straight out of some bad drama show. Kayla froze. Ava gasped. The man turned around casually and zipped up his slacks like he'd done this before. Kayla didn't say a word. She just pulled out her phone and took a photo. Then another. Then a video. Ava tried to grab the phone. She pleaded, panicked. But Kayla wasn't having it. She said, "You're married, and you're my boss. This isn't okay." And that's where it gets worse. Because Kayla didn't come straight to me with the footage. She sent it to someone else first. By 11:12 a.m., Ava was in a closed-door meeting with HR. By 2 p.m., she was suspended, pending internal investigation. And by 6:47 p.m., I received a Dropbox link from an anonymous email titled, "You deserve to know the truth." I sat on the edge of our bed, in silence, watching a shaky phone video of my wife kissing another man in the office where she said she was crushing a campaign pitch. She wasn't crushing anything except our marriage. And just like that, her smile that morning felt like a punchline to a joke I didn't know I was part of. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just watched, again and again, trying to find some version of reality where what I was seeing didn't mean what it clearly meant. But the worst part? The man in the video wasn't a stranger. It was someone I knew. I knew him. That was the part that made everything worse. Not just worse, twisted. Watching that video was already hell. But the moment his face turned toward the camera, my stomach dropped like I'd missed a step on an invisible staircase. Because the man buttoning up his shirt in my wife's office was Travis. My best man at our wedding. My college roommate. My friend of 15 years. The guy who came over every Super Bowl Sunday. The guy who cried when he gave his toast about what real love looks like. Couldn't believe it. And yet, there he was in HD kissing my wife's neck like he owned her. At first I thought, no way. I must have watched that clip 10 more times just to confirm it was really him. The freckle on his left cheek. The stupid chain he always wore. The cocky smile I used to joke would get him killed by someone's husband one day. Guess what, Travis? That day might be today. But I didn't explode. I didn't even message him. I just sat there, numb, trying to process what this meant, how long it had been going on, and how much of my life had been a lie while I'd been too comfortable, too trusting, too busy building a future I thought we both wanted. Ava came home that evening late, around 8:20 p.m. She looked like someone had pulled the rug out from under her, pale, makeup-smudged, eyes red from crying. She dropped her bag at the door, walked into the kitchen, and stopped cold when she saw me at the table with my phone face up and the video paused on the screen. Her mouth opened but no sound came out. I asked one question. Just one. How long? She didn't answer. I stood up, walked over, and handed her the phone. Press play. She didn't try to lie. Didn't even deny it. She just whispered it was a mistake. That sentence. That cowardly, weak, miserable sentence. After everything, after the years we built together, after all the quiet sacrifices I got, it was a mistake. I laughed. I actually laughed. It wasn't funny, but what else could I do? This wasn't just betrayal, it was staged betrayal. Coordinated. Rehearsed. It had layers. And I was the idiot who didn't notice. She kept talking, stumbling over excuses like, I didn't mean for it to go this far, and we were just talking at first, and then, of course, I love you. The room spun. I asked her if this had happened more than once. She nodded. I asked her how many times. She looked away. I told her I'd ask again, and I wanted the truth, not whatever fantasy version she was crafting in her guilty head. That's when she said something that nearly made me black out. She said it started 6 months ago. On our anniversary. You know what we did for our anniversary? I booked a weekend trip to Lake Tahoe. She said she couldn't go because of a last-minute team retreat. Apparently, team retreat meant sleeping with my best friend in a downtown hotel 2 blocks from our apartment. She told me she'd send pictures from the mountain lodge. You know what she sent? Stock photos. I checked the metadata that night out of paranoia. I dismissed it then. But now it made sense. All of it. Every odd thing she said. Every late night. Every sorry, I fell asleep early. Every last, I love you, baby, she threw my way like a consolation prize. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just stood there, facing her, and said the words she wasn't expecting. You'll regret this in ways you can't yet imagine. Then I walked out the door. I didn't take anything. Not my laptop, not my car keys. I walked down the street in the dark with nothing but my phone in my pocket and a hollow silence ringing in my ears. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stay in that house another second. What she didn't know, what Travis didn't know, was that this wasn't over. Not even close. Because I had a plan. That night, I didn't go to a hotel. I didn't crash on a friend's couch. I went to the only place I knew I could think clearly, my brother's workshop on the edge of town. It was cold, empty, and smelled like engine oil and dust, but it was quiet. I sat there for hours, just scrolling through memories, photos, text messages, trying to locate the exact point my life went off the rails. I wanted answers. I wanted clarity. But most of all, I wanted evidence. I wasn't going to scream or beg. I was going to dismantle the whole showpiece of lies they built, brick by pathetic brick. The next morning, I went back to our apartment while Ava was at work or wherever she pretended to be now. I copied everything off her work laptop. She always left it open on the kitchen counter like a trophy of her ambition. I dug through her emails, her Slack messages, her Google Drive, and what I found was worse than the video. There were photos. Dozens of them. Her and Travis in his car. In his condo. In a hot tub I didn't recognize. Later I'd learn it was a weekend Airbnb in Napa. They'd named the folder Q3 Planning. Cute. Corporate betrayal wrapped in a calendar quarter. There were messages like, wish you were under my desk right now, face-blowing kiss. Last night was insane. Can't believe we almost got caught. He still has no idea? LOL. The last one stuck with me. He still has no idea. No, I didn't. Because I was too busy fixing our lives while they were busy ruining them. I backed up everything. Then I went digging deeper, bank statements, Venmo logs, Uber rides. Travis had been covering up quite a bit. He'd even used my Netflix account to stream movies at his place with Ava logged in. The audacity of it all was sickening. He bought her a bracelet, same style as the one I got her for our 5th anniversary, but he inscribed it with TNA forever. I found the receipt in her Apple Wallet. But it didn't stop there. They weren't just sneaking around, they were planning. Planning a future. Without me in it. One message from Travis read, just say the word and I'll help you move out. I've got enough in savings for both of us. We could leave all this behind. She replied, soon. I just need to figure out the money stuff without making him suspicious. I've been dropping hints already. And that's when it hit me, she was trying to get access to my consulting accounts. She'd casually asked for my login info weeks ago under the pretense of organizing our taxes. Thank God I never gave it to her. But it meant she wasn't just cheating. She was preparing for escape. A clean break. A soft landing. For her and Travis. The betrayal was no longer emotional. It was strategic. She was going to leave. And take what she could carry. And I was the fool financing her exit. I drove straight to my attorney's office that afternoon. Told him everything. Showed him screenshots. Documents. Even the Dropbox video. He barely blinked. He'd seen worse, he said, but rarely so calculated. We started working on separation papers immediately. Locked her joint accounts. Froze credit cards. Secured everything under my name. I took her off all access, banking, insurance, even the car registration. She didn't even realize it for days. Because while she was still spinning lies, I was 2 steps ahead. But here's where it all started to unravel for them. One of Ava's co-workers, someone I barely knew, messaged me on LinkedIn. Completely out of the blue. She said, I'm not sure what's going on, but I overheard Ava and Travis arguing in the stairwell. Something about someone finding out and a missing hard drive. I figured you should know. Missing hard drive. That's when I remembered. Ava had an external backup. And if the folder named Q3 Planning was any clue, there was more. So I searched the apartment again. I found it tucked behind a stack of old travel brochures in the closet. Plugged it into my own laptop, and there it was. An entire archive. Emails, chat logs, voice memos, recordings. One file was titled call_recording_04_anav.mp4. I pressed play. And suddenly, I was listening to a phone call between Ava and Travis on the night of our anniversary. She was whispering to him from a hotel bathroom. She said, he still thinks I'm on a work trip. God, it's too easy sometimes. And Travis replied, don't feel guilty. He's a nice guy, but he's soft. You deserve better. Nice guy. Soft. That's who I was to them. And in that moment, I realized something important. They didn't just betray me, they underestimated me. And that was their biggest mistake. Because what I did next wasn't revenge. It was truth served cold, clinical, and absolutely unforgettable. By the time I finished reviewing every file on Ava's hidden hard drive, I wasn't even angry anymore. I was focused. Determined. Something inside me clicked off. The part of me that used to love her had been quietly buried under the weight of her lies, and what remained was a man with nothing to lose, but with enough information to end their fantasy life before it began. I didn't want drama. I didn't want yelling. I didn't even want to see either of them face to face. I wanted clarity. I wanted accountability. And I wanted truth to do the talking for me. So I prepared a message. I created a folder titled For Your Professional Review and loaded it with selected files from Ava's hard drive, photos, messages, a short video clip, and most damning of all, a screen recording of her call with Travis from the anniversary weekend. Her whispering that I was too easy to fool while Travis laughed in the background. I wrote one sentence in the email body. I believe your company should be aware of the ongoing breach of conduct involving 2 of your employees. Then, I BCC'd it to every executive I could find on her company's public listing. VP of HR, CEO, compliance, legal. I even found their PR manager's address from a company press release. And I clicked send. Nothing happened immediately, of course. These things take time. But the storm was coming. And Ava and Travis had no umbrella. The following morning, I turned off my phone. Spent the day walking around the lake near my brother's place, clearing my head. I wasn't thinking about revenge anymore, I was thinking about freedom. About the future. And what it meant to finally see someone's true character with the curtain pulled all the way back. But by 4 p.m. my email was flooded. Anonymous tip lines. HR auto-replies. 2 messages from people I'd never even met before saying things like, you did the right thing. We've suspected something was going on. One employee even said, thank you. She got everything she had by playing men like chess pieces. At 6:03 p.m. Ava called me. 4 times in a row. I didn't answer. On the 5th, I picked up mostly to hear what kind of spin she'd try to pull. She was crying. Panicked. Said she was suspended indefinitely. That there'd been an emergency HR call. That someone had leaked fabricated files that were out of context. I let her ramble. Then I asked, are the files fake? She went quiet. Then I didn't think you'd do this. You're not like this. No. I wasn't. I was better. But I wasn't going to lie down while they walked over everything I built. She asked if we could talk in person. I said no. Then I hung up. 10 minutes later, I got a text from Travis. I hadn't blocked him yet. I wanted to see what kind of man he was under pressure. His message said, "Really classy move. You just ruined 2 lives because of a video? Grow up." That's all I needed to read. I screenshotted it, attached it to an email to his employer where he worked in client partnerships. A bank. I included the photo of him and Ava together, clearly violating conduct policies with a client company. I didn't even need to add commentary. By noon the next day, I heard from a mutual friend Travis had been fired. Apparently, there were prior complaints of inappropriate behavior. My file was the nail in the coffin. But I wasn't done. Because Ava had one more secret. And I didn't uncover it on her hard drive. I found it in a locked drawer in her closet 2 days later when I returned to the apartment to collect my things. A tiny black planner, tucked behind an old shoebox. In that planner were scribbled entries. Sloppy handwriting. Initials. Times. Hotel names. Codes only she would understand. One name kept repeating, EJ. Sometimes with SAT or 4 p.m. next to it. At first I thought it was Travis using an alias. But it wasn't. It was someone else entirely. Because the betrayal didn't end with him. I sat on the edge of the bed holding the planner like it was ticking in my hands. The initials EJ were written more times than I could count, each one underlined, boxed, or followed by a heart or a small X. Some pages even had scribbled lipstick marks, an absurd detail that made my stomach turn. I had no idea who EJ was, but whoever he was important enough to be logged in a personal calendar Ava kept hidden from everyone, including Travis. At that point, I had a choice: close the planner and walk away for good, or open the next door and see how far the rot had spread. I chose the door. I started piecing it together like a crime scene: dates, times, and hotel names. The earliest entry was dated nearly 11 months ago, which meant Ava's affair with Travis hadn't even started yet when she was already seeing EJ. That wasn't just betrayal, that was a pattern. I reverse-searched the hotel bookings through my credit card statements. I'd paid for 2 of them. She told me they were self-care weekends or spa retreats with her cousin. I even remembered dropping her off at one of them. God. But who was EJ? There was one way to find out. I still had access to our shared cloud drive. She never remembered to change passwords, which worked in my favor. I combed through her photo backups looking for any file names that matched the planner's dates. And that's when I found a blurred selfie taken in a hotel mirror. You could barely make out the man's face. He had a beard, short cropped hair, and a noticeable scar under his chin. I zoomed in. Enhanced. And then I saw it. He was wearing a lanyard. With the letters EJ Executive Liaison written on the name badge. I didn't recognize him, at least not right away. But I took that screenshot and plugged it into a reverse image search. And then I saw his LinkedIn profile. Ethan Jacobs. 44. Married. 2 kids. And the worst part? He was Ava's direct manager. The man who wrote her promotion letter last year. The man who gave her the Quarterly Excellence Award. The man who mentored her into a corner office. They weren't just having an affair, he had leveraged his position to build an entire false narrative about her career growth while grooming her behind closed doors. Everything I thought was ambition was strategy. That broke me in a different way. It wasn't just my marriage that was a lie. Her entire career was a lie. It was built on favors, manipulation, and proximity to power. And she had used that power to step over everyone, including me. So I did something drastic. Something cold. I drafted an anonymous email, not to HR this time, but to Ethan's wife. I didn't tell her everything. I didn't need to. I just wrote, "Hi. You don't know me, but I believe your husband has been involved in a long-term relationship with an employee named Ava _______________________________________________________________________________________________________________ I have proof. You deserve to know." Attached were timestamps, screenshots, chat logs, no threats, no drama, just the facts. She responded within the hour. "Thank you. You're not the first to warn me. But now I finally have what I need." That single message told me everything. I sat back in my chair, eyes blurry, realizing just how deep this rabbit hole had gone. Ava wasn't just disloyal. She was performative, strategic, methodical. She had kept 2 different men in rotation while married to me, manipulated a married boss for career gain, and still looked me in the eye every night like nothing was wrong. But the fall was coming. And it started the next day when news broke internally at her firm. Someone had leaked allegations of executive misconduct involving a romantic relationship with a subordinate. I didn't even have to lift a finger. Ethan's wife had already set off the chain reaction. By 3 p.m., both Ava and Ethan were placed on leave. But that wasn't the most satisfying moment. That came when Ava showed up at the apartment unexpectedly. She knocked. I didn't answer. She knocked again. Longer this time. Then, through the door, she whispered, "Please. I need to talk to you. Everything is falling apart." I stayed silent. I listened as she cried quietly, as she slid down against the door like some kind of tragic character in her own drama. I waited for her to speak, to confess, to apologize. But instead, I heard her say, "I don't know what to do. Everyone's turning on me. It's like they all knew, but they were just waiting to destroy me." "No, Ava. You destroyed yourself." I waited a full 2 minutes after she fell silent before I finally stood up and opened the door. She was sitting on the floor, knees tucked in, arms wrapped around her legs. Her eyes were red. Her makeup had run down her cheeks like war paint from a battle she lost before she even stepped onto the field. For a split second, I felt something I didn't expect: pity. Not for the woman who betrayed me, but for the person sitting there now, completely stripped of her pride, her control, her delusion. She didn't stand up. She just looked up at me and said, "I didn't come to beg. I came because I have nowhere else to go." The silence between us was heavy. I didn't move. I didn't invite her in. I just leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, and let her speak. "You don't understand," she began. "This wasn't how it was supposed to go." I almost laughed. Supposed to go? Like betrayal was some kind of coordinated operation that had been derailed by bad weather. She kept talking. "I wasn't trying to hurt you. I thought I was lost. I thought maybe Travis saw me. I mean, you were always there, stable, calm, but he made me feel alive again. I know how that sounds, I know, but it was like I was drowning and he threw me a rope." That metaphor was rich, coming from someone who deliberately tied bricks to her own ankles and jumped. Then she added, "But it wasn't real. With either of them. Travis only wanted what he couldn't have, and Ethan, he just used me. I thought I had control, but I was a pawn." I didn't interrupt. I wanted her to say it all. I needed to hear how she justified it, to herself, to me, to the universe. She told me Ethan's wife filed for divorce that morning. That HR was investigating not just her, but 2 of her closest teammates who apparently covered for her during her late nights. That Travis had gone silent. His number disconnected. His social media wiped. "He ghosted me," she said. "After everything, he didn't even say goodbye. I meant nothing to him." That's when the tears came. Full collapse. She sobbed into her palms, rocking slightly like someone trying to disappear into herself. And I stood there, watching the unraveling. I didn't feel powerful. I didn't feel victorious. I felt done. And then, when she finally looked up, she asked the question I feared she might. "Can we fix this?" Those 4 words carried so much weight, they almost knocked the air out of my lungs, not because I considered saying yes, but because she still believed there was a version of reality where I'd want her back. After everything. I shook my head. "This isn't a crack in the wall, Ava. You demolished the whole house." She whispered, "So that's it? Just over?" I nodded slowly. "It ended the moment you turned our anniversary into a joke. I just hadn't caught up to the truth yet." She wiped her face and said something I never expected. "You were the only man who ever made me feel safe. And I destroyed that. I destroyed you. And I hate myself for it." I believed her. But here's the thing about regret: it doesn't rebuild trust. It doesn't undo months of deception, whispered calls behind bathroom doors, or emails titled, "Just one more night." I told her she could keep the apartment. I was already planning to move out of state, take a job offer I'd been ignoring for months, start somewhere fresh. The only thing I asked was that she never contact me again. No letters. No emails. No mutual friends acting as messengers. She agreed. Then she stood slowly and walked toward the door. But before leaving, she turned and said, "There's one more thing I should tell you." She hesitated. Then, "I'm late. As in, I might be pregnant. And I don't know whose it is." I felt my jaw tighten, but I said nothing. She added, "If it's yours, I'll raise the child alone. I won't ask for anything. I swear." And then she left. No dramatic music. No final hug. Just a door closing softly with everything else crumbling behind it. I sat on the floor for what felt like hours, staring at nothing. Pregnant. Possibly mine. For 3 days I barely slept. My body would lie down, but my mind stayed in constant motion. I'd stare at the ceiling until my chest felt tight, running through every scenario in my head like a courtroom trial I couldn't escape. If she was pregnant, and if it was mine, what then? Would I be chained to a woman I could no longer look in the eyes without seeing every lie she told? Or worse, would I be forced to watch her raise another man's child and pretend it didn't eat me alive? I didn't respond to her after she dropped the news. Couldn't. I didn't have the bandwidth to engage. I needed facts, so I called a lawyer, then a doctor. Then I made the kind of appointment no man ever wants to make, with a private clinic that handled paternity testing with zero drama and full confidentiality. I didn't tell her I was doing it. I didn't need her permission. Legally, if I suspected the child might be mine, I had the right to establish paternity early, blood samples, cell-free DNA, all of it. When she finally texted me on day 4, it was clinical. Cold. I scheduled an appointment. Friday, 10 a.m. I'll be there. I wrote back, I'll meet you at the clinic. Don't speak to me unless it's about the procedure. She didn't argue. Friday came fast. Too fast. I sat in the parking lot of the clinic for 20 minutes before even stepping out of the car. She was already inside when I arrived, sitting in the corner of the waiting room like a statue carved out of guilt. No makeup, no jewelry, just a hoodie and quiet eyes. We didn't hug. We didn't say hello. We filled out the paperwork in silence. The nurse explained the process. I signed. She signed. The sample was taken. And then we waited. 7 days. I went back to work in the meantime, remote jobs, consulting gigs, anything to keep my brain distracted. But even then, I could feel it in the background like a low-frequency hum, the possibility that my life could be tied to hers forever, even after everything. On the 7th day, I received the results via secure email. I stared at the subject line, paternity determination, final. My hand hovered over the mouse like it weighed 1,000 pounds. And then I clicked. There it was, in bold. Probability of paternity 0%. Not mine. Not mine. The relief hit me so hard I actually laughed out loud. Not a joyful laugh. A broken, hollow kind of sound that spilled out because the tension finally cracked. I read it 3 more times just to make sure it wasn't a mistake. The child she carried was Travis's or Ethan's, or maybe someone else. It didn't matter anymore. It wasn't mine. And with that, everything shifted. I forwarded the result to my lawyer immediately. He replied within minutes. This simplifies the divorce. She has no legal claim to shared custody. You're free. I didn't reply. I just closed my laptop and sat in silence. For the first time in months, the silence felt clean. Later that night, Ava texted me. Just one line. You read it, I guess. I didn't respond. She sent another. I don't know what to say. I don't even know who the father is anymore. Still, I said nothing. What was there left to say? You can only burn a house down so many times before there's nothing left but ash and echo. I wasn't going to throw more words into a void she'd hollowed out with her own hands. But here's the truth. Knowing the child wasn't mine didn't make the pain disappear. It just clarified it. It turned the haze of confusion into sharp lines, into a map I could finally follow out of the wreckage. Because now I knew what I was walking away from, and even more importantly, what I was walking toward. The man I was before all this? Gone. The man I was now? Wiser, stronger, sharper. Not colder, but more guarded and no longer blind. 6 months passed. 6 months of silence, of rebuilding, of rediscovering parts of myself I hadn't seen in years. I sold the apartment, took the job offer out of state. It was in Colorado, a quiet town nestled near the mountains. The air felt different there, lighter, like it hadn't been polluted by lies. I furnished the new place simply. Clean lines, neutral tones, a space that didn't echo with memories I never asked for. I started hiking again. I stopped checking my phone for old messages. I learned how to enjoy the silence, not fear it. Some mornings, I'd sit on my porch with coffee and just watch the fog roll in over the hills, and I'd think. So this is what peace feels like. The divorce finalized quietly. No fights, no drawn-out battles. My lawyer handled everything. Ava didn't contest a single thing. In the paperwork, she marked the father of her unborn child as unknown. I never asked again. I never needed to. One evening, in early spring, I got a message on LinkedIn from someone unexpected, Kayla, Ava's former assistant. The woman who had unknowingly set all of this in motion by walking into that office and capturing the truth. Her message said, "I hope it's okay to reach out. I just wanted to say thank you. What you did gave some of us in that company the courage to speak up. After everything went public, 2 more people came forward about Ethan. And they finally started cleaning house. You didn't just stand up for yourself, you made a difference. I hope you're okay. I hope you found something better." I stared at that message for a long time. She didn't owe me anything. She had moved on too. But something about those words, "you made a difference," stuck with me. Because for the first time since the whole nightmare began, I realized maybe that's why it all happened. Maybe it wasn't just destruction. Maybe it was transformation. I responded politely, simply, "I'm doing better than ever. Thank you for being brave." A week later, I joined a local photography club. Something I hadn't touched in years. At one of the meetups, I started talking to a woman named Marin. She had this calmness to her, an unforced stillness I couldn't look away from. We talked about light, shadow, how photos freeze truth in ways words can't. We started going on hikes together. Then coffee. Then something more. I didn't rush anything. I wasn't trying to replace the past. I just let something new grow. Naturally. Authentically. One day, as we were watching the sunset from the summit of a trail we'd climbed together, she asked me, "Do you regret any of it?" I thought for a long moment before answering. "No," I said quietly. "Not anymore." Because every betrayal, every lie, every sleepless night, it all pushed me toward this version of myself. A version who sees things clearly now. Who doesn't settle. Who doesn't ignore the warning signs. Who understands that peace isn't something you're handed. It's something you fight for. And I won that fight. The man who once stood in the ruins of his marriage, holding a phone filled with proof of betrayal, was gone. The man sitting here now? He smiles without needing permission. He sleeps without waiting for the phone to buzz. He lives not in reaction to the past, but in pursuit of something real. And for the first time in years, that's exactly what he has.